Hi, I'm Shane Neman, principal of Neman Ventures, and here are the 5 things I wish someone had told me when I first started. Number 1, don't take anything personally. All right, I may have stolen this one from the book The 4 Agreements by Miguel Ruiz, but it's one of the most important principles that can help you lead a more enjoyable and happy life. I read it for the first time about 8 years ago, and it had such a profound impact on my psyche that I make it a point to reread it every year around New Year's time. When I was a young entrepreneur, I would take everything that was said to me to heart. It didn't matter who was saying it, but if it was any sort of criticism, I would spend hours perpetually overanalyzing and thinking about it, and often lose a whole night of sleep. For example, when I started easy texting in 2005, a lot of my friends and colleagues would tell me that my idea was crap and that SMS was old technology, and I should be focusing on things like in-app messaging or a new kind of messaging app. I even had one of my own family members laugh at me after showing them the beta version of the software I created, and I told her I was going to charge 5 cents per text for businesses to use it. She chuckled and said I should go and focus on big money instead of pennies if I wanted to become successful. Even though I didn't end up listening to any of them, I did spend a lot of time and energy doubting myself and worrying about what others thought of me and my business. It took a lot of practice, experience, and even a magical book like The 4 Agreements to help me overcome that struggle. In the end, they were all wrong. SMS usage continues to grow at a pace of 20% a year and has the largest read and open rates that far exceed any other communications channel. Number 2, it's risky business. For the past few years, the majority of my time has been dedicated to thinking about risk and how to control or leverage it to the maximum extent possible. When I was just starting out, I was assessing risk using my gut and not taking into consideration there are many things that I don't know that I don't know. That led to a lot of bad decision making. However, after several years of intense studying, reading, watching, and obsessing about it, my approach to assessing risk has significantly changed. Now that I'm older, I'm 44, and run my own venture fund, I'm naturally much more careful and risk averse. Unless I can find an asymmetrical business deal where the upside is much more than the downside, then I'm not going for it. Through studying others that are gifted at gauging risk and my own experiences, it's become more obvious to me that the only way to manage risk, and more importantly, be successful at it, is the ability to do several things well, including, first, remove your emotions from the equation. This has been the hardest challenge for me to overcome, and I'm still struggling with it. In many instances, learning to control your emotions is even more important than being smart and working hard. Next, be all right with saying no to most opportunities that come your way. If they don't meet your risk profile or tolerance level, and no matter how exciting and full of potential it might be, just say no. Remember the quote, the more you know, the less you diversify. I'd rather have a small handful of winners in a concentrated but well risk profiled portfolio than a huge unmanageable portfolio that will likely not even give me the same returns. Also, don't be fooled by the outcomes of your decisions. Don't become overconfident just because you made a good decision. It may have had more to do with luck than your ability. On the other hand, don't become too hesitant to take another risk where the odds are in your favor, just because you were burned on a similar deal before. Lastly, always leave chips on the table to be able to recover if you're wrong. That means don't go all in, ever. Number 3, shut up and breathe. In March of 2020, when the pandemic first began, I was home alone, and like everyone else, I was worrying all the time and on the verge of a freaking total meltdown. To top it off, I've had debilitating chronic back pain for the past few years that naturally flared up. I tried to get my mind off things by watching some Netflix and came across an episode of Goop dedicated to a guy named Wim Hof. I watched with skepticism as he showed his breathing technique and made bold claims that it could cure pain and reduce inflammation in your body. But at the time, I had both nothing to lose and nothing better to do, so I downloaded his guided breathing app and gave it a shot. After the first 10-minute session, I felt good for the next hour, so I decided to try it for the next week. I dedicated 15 minutes per day to breath work right after I woke up. By the end of the week, and to my amazement, my back pain was 90% better. I hadn't felt this good in so many years, despite all the different therapies I spent tons of time and money trying to cure myself with. By the end of 1 month, I was completely better, and since then I haven't missed one day of breathing. The Wim Hof method of breathing fixed my back, but what I really began to notice is that I was more energized, more focused, less anxious, and generally nicer. With that came better judgment and more success both in my personal and my business life. I was also enjoying working a lot more and not dreading my endless to-do list. I don't think it matters which breathing technique you do, but it is important to learn how to quiet your mind if you want to be successful, and even more importantly, if you want to be happy. If you can manage your breath, you can manage your mind and your life. Number 4, power equals compounding. Everyone knows Warren Buffett's rule about the power of compounding and allowing your investments to do their job over long periods of time. If you had simply bought the S&P 500 index 20 years ago and closed your eyes, you would have some serious cash now. The same can be said about every business experience you may have, and it doesn't matter if it's a success or a failure, since they both compound to give you the tools you need for your next challenge. Every hardship I've ever endured seemed like a doomsday scenario to me at the time, and even for a while after. But eventually, and perhaps years or decades later, I was able to use those lessons I learned from those hardships to my advantage in new opportunities that I became involved with. Lastly, number 5, success doesn't equal happiness. All right, this is so cliche, but unless it was most likely true, it wouldn't be one, right? If you're like me and you have ants in your pants and are always looking to hit your next goal, please don't forget to enjoy the ride. All that comes at the end of achieving that goal is a fleeting moment of happiness, followed by setting yourself another goal. True happiness is learning to enjoy the ride and not necessarily the achievement of the goal. Namaste.